I am a 34-year-old software engineer living in Boston. I grew up in an affluent family in Connecticut with loving parents Elizabeth and Richard. My childhood was filled with happiness, family traditions, education, and unwavering support. But at my 30th birthday party, a strange comment planted a seed of doubt in my mind. What I discovered after that would devastate me and change everything I thought I knew about myself. Before I share how my perfect life shattered overnight, let me know where you are watching from and hit that like and subscribe button. Trust me, you will want to hear how I found strength when my whole identity was stolen from me. Growing up in Greenwich, Connecticut was like living in a picture-perfect postcard of American success. Our colonial-style home sat on 2 acres of manicured lawn, complete with a swimming pool and tennis court. My father, Richard, worked as an investment banker for a prestigious firm in New York City. He commuted daily in his black Mercedes, always dressed impeccably in custom-tailored suits. My mother, Elizabeth, dedicated herself to charity fundraising and sat on the boards of several notable foundations. They were the power couple of our social circle, respected and admired by everyone who knew them. From my earliest memories, I was showered with love and opportunity. Every summer, we would take our sailboat out on Long Island Sound for weekend trips. My father taught me everything about sailing, from tying the perfect knot to reading weather patterns. During the winter holidays, our home transformed into a wonderland of decorations with an enormous Christmas tree reaching toward our vaulted ceiling. My mother would host elaborate dinner parties where I was always introduced proudly as their brilliant son. Education was paramount in our household. My parents hired the best tutors when I struggled with mathematics in 4th grade. They attended every school play, science fair, and parent-teacher conference. When I expressed interest in computer programming during high school, they bought me top-of-the-line equipment and paid for specialized summer camps focused on coding. Their investment paid off when I was accepted to MIT with a partial scholarship. Throughout college, they remained my biggest supporters. Weekly phone calls, care packages, and surprise visits kept us close despite the distance. When I graduated and landed my first job at a tech startup in Boston, they helped me purchase my condo and furnish it. Even as I established my independence, Sunday dinners at their home remained sacred whenever I could make the drive back to Connecticut. I had built my adult life with their constant encouragement. By my late 20s, I had advanced to a senior position at my company, was financially stable, and maintained a close relationship with the 2 people who had given me everything. I believed I was the luckiest son in the world. The first hint that something was amiss came during my 30th birthday celebration. My parents had organized an elegant garden party at their home, inviting extended family and close friends. The afternoon was perfect, with catered food, flowing champagne, and meaningful toasts. As the evening progressed, my Uncle Marcus, my father's younger brother, became increasingly intoxicated. While I was cutting my birthday cake, Uncle Marcus approached me with a glass of scotch tilting dangerously in his hand. He threw his arm around my shoulders and said loudly enough for nearby guests to hear, "You are the best thing that ever happened to this family, even if you were not supposed to be part of it." The conversation around us immediately hushed. I laughed uncomfortably, assuming he was making a poor joke. When I glanced at my parents, their expressions stopped me cold. My mother's face had drained of color, and my father was striding purposefully toward us with a tight, forced smile. "Marcus, I think you have had enough to drink," my father said firmly, removing the glass from his hand. "Let us get you some coffee." My mother quickly redirected the conversation, asking someone to take photos. The moment passed, but the strange comment lingered in my mind. Later that night, after guests had departed, I casually mentioned Uncle Marcus's strange comment. What did Uncle Marcus mean about me not supposed to be part of the family? My parents exchanged a quick glance. "Oh, you know Marcus," my mother said with a dismissive wave. "He gets nonsensical when he drinks too much." He was probably referring to how we weren't planning to have children so early in our marriage. My father nodded in agreement. "We always planned to establish our careers first, but then you came along and proved to be the best decision we never planned." Their explanation seemed reasonable, but something in their overly casual tone felt rehearsed. For the first time, I found myself studying their features, searching for resemblances to my own. My father's tall frame and broad shoulders, my mother's delicate hands and heart-shaped face. Had I been too busy growing up to notice we looked nothing alike? Over the following months, I found myself observing small details I had previously overlooked. How family friends would sometimes remark that I must have inherited my athletic build from a distant relative. How there were no baby photos of my mother pregnant. How my parents would change the subject whenever genetic traits were discussed. The questions might have remained unasked, if not for the accident. 6 months after my birthday, I was driving home from work when a delivery truck ran a red light and slammed into the driver's side of my car. I woke up in the hospital with a ruptured spleen and internal bleeding requiring emergency surgery. My parents rushed to Boston, immediately arriving at the hospital, pale and terrified. As the medical team prepared me for surgery, a nurse asked about my blood type for transfusion preparations. When I said I was type O negative, just like my mother, the nurse looked confused after checking my parents' information forms. "Mrs. Harris, I see here you're listed as AB positive. And Mr. Harris, you're a positive," she said. "There must be a mistake on our forms," my mother said quickly. "Montgomery has the same blood type as me." The nurse looked unconvinced, but moved on with the preparations. I was wheeled into surgery before I could process the implication of this discrepancy. The recovery period gave me plenty of time to think. Basic biology classes had taught me enough to know that two parents with AB and A blood types could not produce an O-negative child. When I mentioned this to my parents during their hospital visits, they became evasive, suggesting I focus on recovery rather than medical mix-ups. As soon as I was discharged, I ordered a home DNA test, telling myself I was being paranoid but needing to resolve the growing unease. While waiting for the results, I visited my parents under the pretense of needing their care during recovery. One afternoon, when they were both out attending a charity function, I searched through family documents in their home office. Finding nothing unusual in the filing cabinets, I remembered the extensive storage boxes in the attic. Climbing the narrow stairs was painful with my healing incisions, but determination pushed me forward. In the far corner behind holiday decorations and old luggage, I found a sealed document box labeled Montgomery Legal. Inside were sealed court documents, my original birth certificate, with unfamiliar names listed as birth parents, and correspondence with a lawyer who had handled a private adoption 34 years ago. My hands trembled as I read through the papers, confirming what the blood type discrepancy had suggested. By the time my DNA test results arrived 2 weeks later, I already knew what they would show. I was not biologically related to either Richard or Elizabeth Harris. I chose to confront them during our traditional Sunday dinner. I placed the documents and DNA test results on the dining table between us, after my mother had served her famous pot roast. "I need you to explain these," I said quietly. The color drained from both their faces. My mother's hand flew to her pearl necklace, clutching it like a lifeline. My father removed his glasses and pinched the bridge of his nose, a gesture I had seen 1,000 times when he faced a difficult conversation. "Montgomery, we were going to tell you," my mother began, her voice barely above a whisper, when I demanded 34 years of emotions surging through me. "After another 30 years, or never. We adopted you through a private arrangement," my father explained, his businessman voice taking over. "The lawyer who handled everything died years ago. It was not a conventional adoption." "Not conventional. What does that mean?" I pressed. They exchanged glances again, a silent communication I had witnessed my entire life, but now felt excluded from. The channels were not entirely through standard agencies, my father admitted. We had tried to have children for years. We had experienced multiple miscarriages and failed fertility treatments. We were desperate. "A connection through your father's firm knew of a young woman in crisis who needed to place her baby immediately," my mother continued. "We paid the lawyer to handle everything privately. The original birth records were supposed to be sealed permanently. And you never planned to tell me I had a right to know." My voice rose despite my efforts to remain calm. "We were afraid," my mother said, tears streaming down her face. "Afraid you would feel differently about us. Afraid you would want to find your birth parents instead of accepting us as your real family. We loved you so much we could not bear the thought of losing you. So you lied to me my entire life instead. Every family story, every claimed resemblance, every medical history discussion, all lies." "Not lies," my father insisted. "We are your parents in every way that matters. Biology is just science. Family is about love and commitment. Family is also about trust," I said, standing up. "And you broke mine." I left their house that night With my world shattered, my identity fractured, and 3 decades of family narratives revealed as carefully constructed fictions, the weeks following my discovery were the darkest of my life. I took an extended leave from work, claiming ongoing recovery from my accident, while actually spending days in my apartment, cycling through anger, grief, and confusion. My entire sense of self had been built on a foundation that no longer existed. Who was I really? Where did I come from? What health issues might be lurking in my unknown genetic heritage? These questions consumed me day and night. I withdrew from friends who could not possibly understand the magnitude of my identity crisis. I ignored calls from relatives who must have known the truth all along but participated in the decades-long deception. The only communication I maintained was terse text exchanges with my parents. Their messages oscillated between defensive justifications and emotional pleas. "We gave you a privileged life. Most people only dream about," my father wrote. "You are still our son in our hearts." "Nothing has changed for us," my mother insisted. But everything had changed for me. Every childhood memory was now viewed through the lens of their deception. Every family story needed re-examination. Even my personality traits that I had attributed to nature rather than nurture became questionable. Did my analytical mind come from my biological father? Was my occasional melancholy inherited from my birth mother? After 3 weeks of isolation, I agreed to a family therapy session at my parents' request. The therapist, a soft-spoken woman named Dr. Winters, maintained a neutral expression as each of us shared our perspectives. My parents emphasized all they had provided: financial security, educational opportunities, unwavering support, and genuine love. We made a decision 34 years ago that we thought was best for everyone involved. My father explained, his voice steady, but his hands betraying his anxiety as they gripped the armrests. The young woman was not in a position to raise a child. We wanted a baby desperately. It seemed like the perfect solution. "We never intended to hurt you," my mother added tearfully. "Everything we did was out of love. We are still the same people who kissed your scraped knees and celebrated your achievements." When my turn came, I struggled to articulate the profound sense of betrayal. "I do not doubt that you love me," I acknowledged. "But you denied me the truth about myself. You made decisions about my identity that were never yours to make. How can I trust anything now, doctor?" Winters suggested that healing would take time and recommended we each reflect on what family truly meant to us. As we were leaving, my father placed his hand on my shoulder, stopping me in the parking lot. "Montgomery, your mother and I need you to understand something," he said, his voice taking on the tone he used for serious business discussions. "This search for your biological origins needs to stop. It can only bring pain to everyone involved. The past is past. We are your family. I have a right to know where I came from," I responded. "If you continue down this path, it will damage our relationship permanently," he warned. "Some doors are better left closed." His ultimatum only strengthened my resolve. I hired a private investigator specializing in adoption cases the following day. The investigation progressed slowly. With limited information from my original birth certificate, which only listed my biological mother's name as Jane Smith, likely a pseudonym, the investigator had little to work with. However, he managed to trace the deceased lawyer's records to a storage facility in Oregon, suggesting a possible connection to that state. I submitted my DNA to several ancestry databases, hoping for matches with biological relatives. The emotional roller coaster intensified with each potential lead. I imagined countless scenarios about my origins. Was I the product of a teenage pregnancy, an affair, a relationship that ended tragically? One database returned a distant match with several individuals in the Pacific Northwest, supporting the Oregon connection. My investigator discovered records of a young woman named Sophia Anderson, who died in Portland 34 years ago due to childbirth complications. The timing and location aligned with my birth, raising the possibility that she might have been my biological mother. While I was deep in this search for my origins, my Aunt Jessica, my mother's sister, called me unexpectedly. Her voice was uncharacteristically gentle, lacking her usual brisk efficiency. "Montgomery, I feel you should know something," she said after awkward pleasantries. "Your parents have revised their will." The news hit me like a physical blow. Jessica explained that during their annual estate planning meeting, my parents had removed me as their primary heir. The family estate worth several $1 million, including property investments and family heirlooms, would now be divided among my cousins and several charities. They believe you have rejected them by pursuing this search. Jessica explained her disapproval, evident despite her attempt at neutrality. They said if you no longer consider yourself their son, they no longer consider you their heir. Did they actually say that? I asked, my voice barely audible. Jessica's momentary hesitation confirmed the truth before she softened it. Richard said, and I quote, "He is not really our son anymore. I am sorry, Montgomery. I disagree with their decision, but it is their estate to distribute as they wish. The financial loss, substantial as it was, paled in comparison to the emotional rejection. After 34 years of claiming me as their beloved son, they had discarded me for wanting to know the truth about myself." 2 days later, a courier delivered a formal letter from my parents' attorney. The cold legal language informed me that Richard and Elizabeth Harris were severing all familial, financial, and personal ties with me effective immediately. They requested I no longer attend family functions and stated all communications should go through their lawyer moving forward. The final blow came a week later. 3 large boxes arrived at my apartment containing childhood mementos, school awards, and personal items I had left at their home. My entire childhood packaged up and returned as if I had never been part of their family. I hit rock bottom that night, sitting alone on my apartment floor, surrounded by the artifacts of a life that no longer seemed to belong to me. Depression enveloped me like a heavy fog in the weeks that followed. I extended my leave from work, using all my accumulated vacation time and sick days. My spacious Boston apartment, once a point of pride, became a prison of memories and unanswered questions. The boxes from my parents remained mostly unpacked in my living room, a physical manifestation of my fractured identity. I stopped answering calls from friends and colleagues. My refrigerator contained only takeout leftovers and expired milk. Unshaven and unwashed, I spent days staring at walls or mindlessly scrolling through streaming services without actually watching anything. Sleep came in fitful bursts, interrupted by vivid dreams of faceless parents and childhoods that never happened. Only my friend Jackson refused to be pushed away. After I ignored a dozen of his calls, he appeared at my door with groceries and a determined expression. "You look like hell," he said, pushing past me into the apartment. He wrinkled his nose at the stale air and unwashed dishes. "This ends today. Shower while I clean up this disaster zone." Jackson's intervention pulled me back from the edge. As we sat eating the pasta he had prepared, I finally unburdened myself of the entire story. "So your parents lied to you," he summarized after listening patiently. "That was wrong. They disowned you for wanting the truth. That is cruel. But letting this destroy you, that is giving them way too much power." His straightforward assessment cut through my fog of self-pity. Over the next few days, with Jackson's persistent support, I began rebuilding a routine. I showered daily, ate proper meals, and even began sorting through the boxes my parents had sent, separating items worth keeping from those I could discard. It was while organizing these childhood mementos that I discovered a letter I had missed. Unlike the other items, this was new, a certified mail envelope from a law firm in Portland, Oregon. Thinking it might be related to my investigation, I opened it immediately. "Dear Mr. Montgomery Harris," the letter began. "We represent the estate of Evelyn Blackwood, recently deceased. Through a DNA database registry and subsequent investigation, you have been identified as a potential heir to Mrs. Blackwood's estate. We request your presence at our offices at your earliest convenience to discuss this matter." I read the letter multiple times, trying to make sense of it. The name Evelyn Blackwood meant nothing to me. Was this some elaborate scam, targeting vulnerable adoptees? Or could this stranger somehow be connected to my biological family? I called the law firm, half expecting the number to be fake. Instead, I reached a professional receptionist who confirmed the legitimacy of the letter and scheduled a meeting with attorney Gabrielle Sullivan for the following week. "Should I go?" I asked Jackson that evening, showing him the letter. "It could be nothing, or worse, some kind of cruel prank." Jackson examined the letter carefully. "The firm is legitimate. I looked them up. What do you have to lose by checking it out? At minimum, you get a trip to Portland. At best, you might find answers." After a few days of deliberation, I booked a flight to Portland. The trip felt simultaneously momentous and absurd. I was flying across the country to meet strangers who might connect me to a woman I had never known based on a DNA match and a mysterious letter. Portland welcomed me with uncharacteristically clear skies and mild temperatures. The law offices of Sullivan, Washington and Pierce occupied the top floor of a renovated historic building downtown. The reception area featured exposed brick walls, local artwork, and a stunning view of Mount Hood in the distance. Attorney Sullivan was not what I had expected. Rather than an elderly man in a bow tie, I was greeted by a middle-aged woman with silver-streaked black hair and a warm smile that reached her eyes. "Mr. Harris, thank you for making this journey," she said, ushering me into a conference room. "I understand this must seem quite unusual." You could say that I replied, trying to keep my expectations in check. "I am not even sure why I am here." Gabrielle Sullivan placed a thick folder on the table between us. "Let me explain what we know." Evelyn Blackwood was 82 years old when she passed away peacefully in her sleep 2 months ago. She was the matriarch of the Blackwood family, which has owned substantial timber interests in Oregon for 4 generations. She opened the folder and turned it toward me. The first page held a photograph of an elegant elderly woman with striking blue eyes, high cheekbones, and a composed expression. Evelyn had one daughter, Sophia, born when Evelyn was 40, Attorney Sullivan continued. Sophia was the light of her life, but tragedy struck 34 years ago when Sophia died due to complications during childbirth. My breath caught. Sophia, the name my investigator had uncovered. The baby, a boy, disappeared from the hospital before Evelyn could claim him, the attorney said, watching me closely. There were irregularities with the adoption paperwork. By the time Evelyn discovered what had happened, the trail had gone cold. She spent the next 3 decades searching for her missing grandson. She turned to the next document, a birth certificate listing Sophia Anderson Blackwood as the mother and the father as unknown. The baby's name was listed as Baby Boy Blackwood, born the exact date as my birthday. 6 months ago, Evelyn received a match notification from a DNA ancestry service. Someone sharing significant genetic markers with the Blackwood family had submitted a sample. That someone was you, Mr. Harris. My mind raced to process this information. Are you saying that Sophia Blackwood was my biological mother? And Evelyn was my grandmother? Attorney Sullivan nodded. Evelyn hired investigators who confirmed your adoption circumstances aligned with her grandson's disappearance. She was preparing to contact you when her health declined rapidly. Her final act was to revise her will, naming you as her primary heir should the genetic relationship be confirmed. She slid another document across the table, a DNA test report. We took the liberty of comparing your submitted DNA profile against samples from Evelyn. The results confirm you are her biological grandson with 99.8% certainty. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. After months of searching for scraps of information about my origins, I was suddenly faced with an entire family history and a grandmother who had spent decades looking for me. What exactly does being her heir entail? I asked, struggling to focus on practical matters while my emotions threatened to overwhelm me. Evelyn Blackwood's estate includes the family home, a historic property on 5 acres overlooking the Willamette River, valued at approximately $4 million. The Blackwood Timber Company shares are worth approximately $12 million. There are also various investments, art collections, and personal items of significant value. As her only living descendant, you inherit everything. I sat in stunned silence. Hours ago, I had been a man with no family and a fractured identity. Now I was the heir to a family legacy I had never known existed. The Blackwood estate was nothing short of magnificent. Situated on a wooded hillside overlooking the Willamette River, the craftsman-style mansion had been built in 1908 by my great-great-grandfather. Walking through the front door for the first time, I was struck by the sense of history in every detail, from the hand-carved banister to the stained glass windows depicting Pacific Northwest landscapes. Attorney Sullivan had arranged for the estate caretakers, an older couple named Thomas and Mary Jennings, to show me around. They had worked for my grandmother for over 20 years and greeted me with a warmth that brought unexpected tears to my eyes. "You have her eyes," Mary said softly. "Evelyn would be so happy you have finally come home." Home. The word resonated in a way it never had before. As I explored the house room by room, I discovered spaces that seemed to speak directly to me. The library with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves containing first editions and family journals. The solarium where Evelyn had apparently spent mornings with her tea and correspondence. The basement workshop where generations of Blackwood men had crafted furniture, including a rocking chair my biological grandfather had made for my mother when she was expecting me. Most precious of all was the room Evelyn had prepared for me. Though she had never met me, she had created a space based on what her investigators had learned about my life. A desk for my computer work. Bookshelves containing volumes on software engineering and technology. Even framed photographs of MIT and Boston, places important in my life. She never gave up hope of finding you, Thomas explained as we stood in this room designed for a grandson she had never met. Every birthday, she would light a candle and say, "Another year closer to bringing him home." Over the following weeks, I immersed myself in learning about my biological family's history. The Blackwoods had been pioneers in sustainable forestry practices long before environmental consciousness became mainstream. My grandmother had been a respected businesswoman who expanded the family holdings while establishing conservation trusts to protect old-growth forests. In my mother's childhood bedroom, preserved exactly as she had left it, I discovered her diaries. Through her teenage journals, I met Sophia Blackwood, a passionate young woman who loved poetry, dreamed of becoming a marine biologist, and fell in love with a visiting ecology student during her freshman year at Reed College. The student James returned to his home country of Denmark before learning of her pregnancy. Sophia had planned to raise me as a single mother with Evelyn's support, but fate had other plans. The most moving discovery came in a cedar chest in Evelyn's bedroom. Inside was a baby blanket she had knitted, while waiting for my birth, a collection of gifts she had purchased for milestones she missed, and letters she had written to me throughout the years, never sent, but preserved, in the hope that someday I would read them. My dearest grandson, one letter began. Today, you would be turning 16. Are you learning to drive? Are you falling in love? Do you know how desperately you are missed? Wherever you are, I hope you are loved and happy, even as I continue searching for you. Reading these letters from a grandmother who had never stopped looking for me brought healing tears. While my adoptive parents had erased my origins to make me exclusively theirs, Evelyn had honored the connection we shared despite our separation. As I settled into my new life in Oregon, I established the Sophia Blackwood Memorial Foundation dedicated to supporting young single mothers and advocating for adoption transparency. The foundation would use a portion of my inheritance to provide housing, educational opportunities, and legal support to women in situations similar to my biological mother's. News of my inheritance eventually reached my adoptive parents back in Connecticut. 6 months after I had moved to Oregon, I received an email from my father. The tone was conciliatory, expressing how much they missed me and suggesting they visit to reconnect as a family. A year earlier, such an olive branch would have sent me rushing back into their arms, grateful for their forgiveness. Now, with the perspective gained through therapy and the discovery of my biological family's love, I recognized the email for what it was, an attempt to re-establish connection only after learning of my newfound wealth. I crafted a careful response. I did not mention the inheritance or my knowledge of their motives. Instead, I wrote that I was building a new life that honored both my past and present. I expressed gratitude for the opportunities they had provided, while making it clear that any future relationship would need to be built on complete honesty and respect for my autonomy. I am still processing the complex emotions surrounding my adoption and your decision to conceal it, I wrote. While I am open to communication in the future, I need time and space to continue my healing journey. I hope you can respect these boundaries. Their reply revealed everything about their unchanged perspective. Rather than acknowledging my feelings or expressing genuine remorse, they focused on how my abandonment had hurt them and suggested my obsession with my biological family was unhealthy. The subtext was clear: they still viewed me as their possession rather than an individual with valid feelings and independent identity. With the guidance of my therapist, I established firm boundaries. I would exchange holiday and birthday messages. I would share major life updates. But I would not resume a close relationship with people who could not acknowledge the harm their deception had caused or respect my need to embrace my complete identity. The journey toward healing proved more complex than simply replacing one family with another. Through weekly therapy sessions, I worked through the anger and betrayal, eventually reaching a place where I could appreciate the love my adoptive parents had given me despite their flawed execution. Simultaneously, I honored my biological heritage without idealizing the family I had never known. I created new traditions that bridged both worlds. On my birthday, I sailed on the Willamette River, combining my father's lessons about navigation with my biological grandfather's love of water. During holidays, I invited friends and newly discovered distant Blackwood relatives to gatherings that created new memories rather than trying to recreate either family's traditions. The estate became not just my home, but a gathering place for a chosen family of friends, colleagues, and relatives, connected by love rather than obligation. Jackson relocated to Portland to join a tech startup, bringing his energy and unwavering support to my new beginning. As I arranged photographs in my study one evening, I realized I had placed images of both families side by side, my past and present, in conversation rather than competition. The angry young man who had once wanted to erase his adoptive family from his life had evolved into someone capable of holding life's complexities without being broken by them. True family, I had learned, was not defined by blood or legal documents, but by honesty, respect, and the courage to love without possession. My adoptive parents had given me educational advantages and material comfort, but had failed to give me truth. My biological family, though mostly known to me through letters and heirlooms, had honored my existence even in absence. The family that raised me taught me how to succeed, but losing them taught me how to truly live. Sometimes the family we are born into and the family that raises us are not the same, but the family we choose to build around us is what matters most in the end. If you have ever discovered unexpected truths about your origins or had to redefine family on your own terms, share your experience in the comments below. Remember that your story matters and your identity belongs to you alone. Hit the like button if this journey resonated with you. Subscribe for more real-life stories of resilience, and share with someone who might need to hear that family is about love and truth, not control. Thank you for listening to my story, and may you find peace with all the pieces of your own identity puzzle.